Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're back to the Matrix, back to the end of times, back to
Or the beginning of times.
or the
Hello,
beginning of
everyone.
times. Yes, with
It's all about perspective.
none other than the illustrious Nikolai. How are you doing?
Excellent. Waking up. Well, I woke up very early, but then so much energy is passing through me that I was passing out every half an hour as I was sitting on the couch. So, but the conversation we just had about meditation is bringing me back to my, the way I would say, maybe state of excitement to chat about something interesting.
Ah, okay. Well, I've been down for the count. I missed last week because I just screwed up, and then I have been sick for the last 4 days, so I'm just coming out of it. So this feels like a good time to regroup, to refresh, and the world is providing us with a lot of interesting topics for discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, side note for all the listeners. Nikolai actually has no idea what the hell we're ever going to talk about. I never tell him or give him
And that's
any
why I'm excited.
notes in advance. So, I mean, this
Yeah.
is every time we do an episode, I'm sure he's thinking in his mind, what the hell are we going to talk about today? What's going to be thrown at me?
Well, yeah, and then I have this, like, as I woke up, I was like, oh, that's gonna be interesting. Like, because every time it's an interesting conversation, so I'm like actually looking forward to it.
Okay, well, hold on to your hats because I couldn't resist dipping my baby toe into geopolitics and how it
Of
relates to the
course.
Matrix. I just couldn't. I'm sorry,
Let's do it.
So, question number one. So here's where I wanted to start with this, and then we'll see, obviously, what rabbit holes we decide that we're going to dive down. But if we are looking at the Iran conflict from a Matrix perspective, okay?
Yep.
Why is the Matrix fascinated with the Middle East? It seems like this area has dominated consciousness for 2,000 years, 5,000 years. I mean, we don't even know how far it goes back, but
Yeah.
but this area of the world has clearly been sort of anointed the top dog area of the world for at least, if we say since BC switched to AD. What does the Matrix see in Iran, Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia that it doesn't see in, say, Vanuatu or Kenya? Let's start there.
Okay. Let's start first of all from how the matrix works, and then we're gonna get to the details.
Yeah.
We've chatted. There is an episode about timelines, and so basically, the way anything in this universe happens, it actually gets programmed on energetic level first. It's like if we compare it to software engineering, you write code and then the code executes. So there are advanced souls and advanced energetic beings that program universe. And we briefly touched on in previous episodes as well. Souls that have a status of architects, they are able to program energetically the space or cosmos. So there is chaos and cosmos. Chaos is just, let's call it a part of universe, unstructured part of universe filled with building material, which scientists call dark matter. It's just something that it was not structured into anything. And cosmos is a structured part of the universe. So advanced being that are called architects, and this is one of the names, structure it to behave, structure that energy to behave in specific way. So for example, our universe is structured in a way that is described by universal laws. And one of the universal laws, the first one, is protect life and life's evolution. And that's the rule that is ingrained on a fundamental level and all the other universal laws flow out from that. So coming back to the timelines, there are timelines that exist energetically in every area of universe because something is unfolding, some kind of energy is predominant, and as a result, some kind of events can play out. So this planet with the solar system has been rapidly moving from low vibrational space of universe to higher vibrational space of universe. Think of it as, if we compare it fractally, we have sun in our solar system, and the planets are spinning around the sun, and the sun is the highest vibrational point of our sector, which is solar system, which we call solar system. And but then there is also a central sun in the universe, and that's what scientists call Big Bang. That's from where universe has formed. And so we're basically in a per se spaceship, because sun, with all the planets, using its gravity with all the planets, it's moving towards the central sun. So, and the closer we get to the central sun, the higher vibration, the space gets higher vibration, the density of energy that is available increases. So because that is what's happening, basically vibration in the space that we're moving into is increasing, hence vibration on the planet and the density of energy is increasing. As a result, matrix, or beings that manage this planet, including the matrix, need to build out events to make necessary adjustments on the planet so it actually resembles a higher vibrational planet. So that's the broader perspective and vector that's unfolding. So now, as we get to minutia of things, Matrix does not give a shit about Iran more than Vanuatu or whatever fuck else you can find on the map written in the tiniest font possible. The only thing Matrix cares about is, what is the program that I have received, and what is the most efficient way to get to the result. And the program the Matrix has received by architects, so the planet is moving to high vibrational spaces. There are architect souls that are managing this planet, and they're like, okay, this planet had actually two options. And originally, the first option was the priority option. The the civilization that is populating this planet does not resemble high vibrational civilization. Let do complete reset. That has happened on this planet many times. That's why there are biblical stories of the planets getting wiped with floods, all types of natural cataclysms, blah blah blah. What is it? Asteroid hitting the planet, dinosaurs disappearing. This is all these stories are not stories; they're descriptors of the planetary reset, because civilization was either going towards self-destruction or not resembling the state where the solar system exists, does not resemble vibrational level, and is not moving in a direction of resembling it anytime soon. So the easiest approach is just to wipe the civilization and repopulate it, from basically retain a tiny sample of the species that is connected to consciousness, in this scenario human, and allow them to re-establish new values and hopefully derive some learnings. And really the way the learnings get derived, the architect souls program the matrix with new set of rules. They upgrade the rules and watch how the civilization unfolds again. So right now, because we're entering high vibrational space, bunch of architects landed here a few thousand years ago, and the process was slow, setting up what's going to be the transitionary program. An original program, let's fucking wipe it, because let's look around, everybody's trying to kill each other. Not very positive, optimistic outlook, right? And everybody was like, subset of people still screaming about nuclear fallout, nuclear war. That is not part of the timeline that the planet is on. Yes, people can get fearful and etc. And I'll chat about that, why that piece is important, a bit later. So we're on a different timeline now, and that timeline has been solidified, approved, and like now is just filling up more and more with energy as of last summer, which is this planet is not getting wiped and repopulated. This planet is going through a mechanism of separation. And what's interesting, in one of your messages, you've already kind of, when we were chatting on Telegram, you kind of touched on this. So whoever can shift their vibration to resemble the new sector universe that we're entering can stay on this planet and continue living, evolving, developing, rebuilding, whatever. Whoever cannot basically will exit incarnations and will reincarnate in the sector of universe that matches their vibrational level. And there is actually, because we've chatted about that Matrix V5 is Advanced Evolutionary School, and it's actually, let's call it an important plays a very important role in the universe overall to take young souls and help them evolve very rapidly to advanced souls. There has been a copy of that V5 matrix made of that operating system, the Advanced Evolutionary School, and installed on another planet. So a subset of souls is just dying here, exiting from the bodies, and going to another planet to continue their evolution if they cannot reach this advanced levels of consciousness and vibrational levels. Subset of planets, souls, is going with our bodies, non-bodies of other civilizations. And in some episodes, and we talked and touched on about other civilizations being present here. Actually, there are many civilizations are present here. Your soul is from Vega civilization, my soul is from Mintaka civilization, and the list goes on. These we call right now I'm gonna figuratively call our civilization high vibration civilizations because we came from a sectors of universe that have higher density of energy and higher vibration, closer to the central sun. But there are many civilizations present here that came from outskirts of universe where there is lower vibration and lower density of energy, hence higher scarcity. Those are reptilians, greys, insectoids, and the list goes on. And within those kinds, there are also high vibration civilization. Reptilian has many subversions of their civilization. For example, Dagoons or Dagons, whichever way you call them, they're they're high vibration of reptilian civilization because they've actually figured out how to evolve and increase their vibration. So in our scenario, our civilization is humanoid kind, and we have specific values, and that make us, let's call them, that enable our full potential. The way I would describe it, for Mitch to have a higher chance of expressing his full potential and creativity and creating something for the world and living a happy life, he likes to have a couch, and like a terrace, go hang out, I don't know, outside sunbase. Whereas a crocodile is really comfortable in a swamp. And if we put Mitch in a swamp, he'll be like, this is not fucking comfortable. It's not enjoyable. Not full potential environment. At the same time, if you put crocodile on a couch, the crocodile will be like, what the fuck? This is not a full potential space. I can swim, and it's like, I can't hunt here, and blah, blah, blah. So where I'm going with this, there's too much in the spiritual world. There's, first of all, there's a demonization of reptilians and insectoids, and the list goes on. No, they're just different kinds with different values and different priorities. And their priorities is to turn the planet into, per se, swamp. What is their comfortable environment? And they have done it because those civilizations managed this planet for the past, 7 plus or 12,000, whatever years. That's why we're currently observing the world, very hierarchical, pyramidal world, where people on the top have most energy, and every layer you go down, the representative of that layer has less and less energy. That's how those civilizations learn to survive in a lower vibrational space where there is smaller amounts of energy. They want to fight, compete to accumulate as much of energy because then they feel the sense of safety and security. Uh, where we come from, there's so much fucking energy that there is enough for everyone, and we know everybody can be sovereign and individual and do whatever fuck they want and live a happy life, and there's enough of everything for everyone. Very different mindset. So this planet has been managed with this mindset of scarcity and the values of those civilizations for extensive period of time. And because some can call it infected, it was not infected, it was just reprogrammed, because they also have architects. Those civilizations have architects. They've reprogrammed this planet as much as they could to support their values, so that they're comfortable in the swamp because they're used to living in the swamp, not on a couch. What is happening right now has been happening now for a while, and where I'm saying finally the timeline has been approved, there were like different levels, I guess, of approvals, is that this planet is shifting back as it's entered high vibrational space. It's entering back to having a couch, so we can unlock full health, full potential here. And those guys are getting off. So where I'm going with this long side story, subset of people is going to a copy of this planet to continue their evolution. Subset of people, or people where they're not really people, the souls or whatever manages the body, are going with those civilizations to their spaces. That is why what is unfolding right now is what is called informational war. Well, people think it's informational war of Democrats versus Republicans, or I don't know, East versus West. Pick a fucking descriptor. In reality, the informational war is high vibration values, low vibration values. Who are you going to stay with? If you want to stay here on a couch with us and do a bunch of creative projects, you're welcome. But you got to work on yourself to harmonize your personality. And that's the path. Because by harmonizing your personality, you're dropping low vibrational energy. By that, your being starts supporting high vibrational energy, and you fit like a glove into the new environment where the solar system is moving. If you're like, fuck that, status is important to me, my bank account is important to me, blah, 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 you're going with reptilians, insectoids, and etc. to their sector, because that's what's important to them. You resemble their values. You're in a resonance to their values. And there is some kind of I haven't read the Bible, and that comes from Maxime. We were chatting about this. There is some kind of a writing in the Bible that says there will be a judgment day where people will try to go through the opening in a needle on a camel, or something like that, basically trying to bring all of their belongings with them into the new world, but they have to pass through this needle opening, right? And that's what's right now subset of this population. And by the way, like all the leaders and of this planet, like large corporations, governments, and etc., they're aware of those things I'm talking about. What they're trying to figure out is how do they keep the reptilian, insectoid, whatever, etc. values and stay on this planet. But that does not coexist. You cannot like keep you cannot really put a couch into a swamp because it just, sinks. So where I'm going with this, if I would tie it back to where we started, Matrix chose as one of, like, it looked around, okay, that's our vector, we're going to high vibrational. As part of going to becoming high vibrational civilization again, we need to shake off all the shackles of old version of civilization that is comes from low vibrational values. That process is called transformation, and part of the transformation process is destruction of things that don't fit new values. So what we're observing in Middle East is destruction of old world, and it touches on every part of old world, like economic system, military infrastructure that's being erased overnight. Then more and more people are realizing all the politicians and like CEOs of major companies are lying to their own benefit, right? Like files of Epstein's getting further released and realizing, wow, those people are not who they're saying they are. And the list goes on. And I'll pause here.
Oh, man. Yes,
I
and it was
probably opened so many,
yeah,
so
yeah, there's a
many
lot of
Pandora
different
boxes.
I mean, even just to uh, very briefly take a little left turn. It
Yeah.
was interesting, something that I was noticing. Of course, coincidences, who knows? But um, magically, apparently, there's a number of Epstein files that have been deleted since this war has taken off, which wouldn't surprise me, right? Because it's not even in the news cycle anymore. I haven't heard
Yep.
anything. It was like Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Wait, look over here, Iran.
Iran,
No,
Iran, Iran, Iran.
Iran, Iran, Iran. Right. So that was one thing, of course. Again, correlation is not causation, but um, so that's interesting. So I'm actually going to go down to another question that I had because
Yeah.
I think it ties in with what you just mentioned, and this was something that I was really curious about. So, okay, so if we're moving to high vibration, we got to shake up low vibration or get rid of low vibration, right? However you want to put
Either
it.
either destroy it or transform it. Those are the two options.
So, here's my question. So, if that's the idea, if that's the vector,
Hmm.
then what specifically makes places or nations low vibration, right? Like, because
No.
like if I was just, for example, opening up X or opening up my Instagram, whatever, name the
Yeah.
platform, right? It would appear to me that the USA is pretty low vibration. Yet nobody's bombing the USA. So what, I guess, if we're looking at this globe that
Yeah.
we're all, or circular
Mhm.
spaceship, however you want to say, that we're on right now,
Spherical.
spherical. Thank you, spherical. What determines the
The bombing
area
priority.
being? What determines the area being specifically low vibration, or the nation being low vibration? Because you do see that, if we're going to call them extermination events, I don't know what we
Yeah.
want to call
Yeah.
them, but
Transformation events.
transformation events. Transformation. I like that. Very politically correct. Transformation events. When these transformation events happen,
Yeah.
they're only ever in very specific places. And so I just want to unpack how does the matrix make that determination, right? Like, the determination is
Yeah.
is Iran, not, for example, like Wisconsin or something. And so
Yeah.
why is it that?
Excellent question. And I'll come back to the point that is very important. Matrix is very efficient. It's all about efficiency. How do I get to results in the most efficient way while preserving energy? Right? Because like starting a conflict, it's like quite a bit of energy organizing enough people who are upset at each other and start fighting with each other, right? Um, let's come back to America. There's not really a need to bomb America because America is killing it itself from inside. It's eating itself from inside, and we should look just at the building unit of a society or of a civilization as a human. An average American is does not have a is not healthy, is on multiple prescriptions, is semi-depressed, with the most important values in their life is accumulating wealth, which is basically low vibration civilization value, which is exiting from here. So they are dying from illegal drugs, legal drugs, which is pharma, cancer, depression, the list goes on. The mechanism is already working efficiently and spectacularly well for transformation of America. So if you take average, I don't know, Middle Eastern, they actually live substantially healthier lifestyle, and the religion has been deep part of their culture, which kept them substantially more aligned. Their higher values than just we work like take Iran. Like they're like not really like, okay, some people are optimizing for money, but other people are optimizing for completely different things in life, right? But there are still low vibrational people there. Or like a great example is Russian-Ukrainian conflict. So even though a lot of Russians and Ukrainians care about money, of course, the reason America really didn't like that region because it's very difficult to bribe. There are a set of ideals and values that they will not sell for money. Of course, subset of population will send their children for money, and that's represented everywhere across the planet. But we're talking about dominating states, right? But Russia and Ukraine still had a lot of low vibrational people. And real life example for you, when I chat with Maxim, he's like, wow, the streets got so peaceful. Previously, you go out in Russia, sit in a bar or in a restaurant, there will be a bunch of rowdy people who will start beating each other up, low vibe people. Guess what? Those are people who were interested to express their anger. Well, they discovered if you sign a contract with military, you'll get paid and you can express your anger. So they just went into that meat grinder and self-extracted themselves from from this planet. So every region just uses a different mechanism, and one mechanism though that we're going to see more and more happening across the planet is actually two mechanisms I'll talk about. The first one is a little bit easier to describe, is increased depression and apathy. That's mean there's less and less energy because the person is not aligned. And on the most fundamental level, most of the health problems are start with a persistent state of depression/apathy. And it's not launched by depression or apathy. Depression and apathy is an indication that you will experience major health problem if you stay in that state for an extensive period of time. If you're in that state over 21, 30 days, that means the tap of energy has been turned off. That means etheric body or does not have enough energy to maintain a healthy body. And every person has a predisposition of a health person. For somebody, it will be lung failure. For somebody, it will be cancer. For somebody, it will be whatever fuck it is. And that's going to be one big mechanism of exit from this planet. The second mechanism is actually more cinematic. That's the word I'm going to use. Because this one is, and you're out of incarnation, the health went out. And in many scenarios, people will be like, fuck, something's wrong with me and I got to figure it out. I got to go work on myself. And actually, a lot of awakenings or people choosing, okay, I actually choose to shift to high vibrational way of living because they face the challenge and they realize they need to change something in life. So it's actually, that mechanism is very powerful. The second mechanism, the reason I call it cinematic is because we got to get back to fundamentals of what it means, higher vibration and higher density of energy. When we live in a lower vibrational space, an old version of Nikolai wakes up, let's say, 20 years ago and thinks, oh, I want to accumulate more money. I want to be fucking greedy and I'm willing to do what's necessary, walk on people's heads and whatever. The payback for that, because low vibration, low speed, and lower density. So it takes lower density of energy because it takes energy to build events. It takes more time for a matrix to assemble event where I get to experience greediness by showing a greedier guy showing up in my life and taking everything that I was accumulating for whatever 20, 30 years. Now all that is compressing from 20, 30 years to 2-3 months and then 2-3 weeks, then 2-3 days. So what it means is that whatever values live in you, you will experience mirror of them substantially faster in a more intense way. If somebody's aggressive, you might get meet a guy in the street who is walking back from a baseball practice and decides to use that on you because they're aggressive too. So the matrix will bring those people together much faster. So whatever, and that's why coming back to that also another subset or another aspect of that so-called biblical judgment day, there's also a saying in Bible, something along the ways, you will be judged the way you judge others. So basically what lives within you, that's the judgment you will receive. And the reason you receive that judgment because the manifestation accelerated. So the energy you have within you manifest, and once let's come back to what matrix is just mirror. It just mirrors you, what's within you, faster and a higher intensity. And the reason I called it cinematic, now you can imagine all types of cinematic events that will unfold where people will have the experiences what lives in now.
Is this where, for example, because I've seen it more and more, and I find it hard to believe that it's just the ability to record more now, whether it's through street cameras being everywhere or
Mm.
mass surveillance. But you see often now there's a lot of videos where some random person will just stab somebody out of nowhere. And it's like they don't even know
Yeah,
the
that's
person,
that's
right?
that's that. That's that cinematic event.
And yeah, and it seems to me like, well, how is
Seems
that
random, but it's
possible?
not random at all.
Exactly. Like, why choose that person? Why that moment? And how is Matrix saying whether that person is mentally ill, whether they are deranged, whether they're just on a lot of different psychotic meds that are making them do something?
Yeah.
Who knows? But the energy of the Matrix has to be behind it in some way to say, well, okay, little Johnny, you need to go stab a
Shoot
random
up a
person
school.
over there, you know?
Yeah. Well, Matrix is playing since it's a mirror. It's kind of playing those games where you gotta match the colors of the bubbles, so they like the more you assemble and they disappear. It's matching the colors of the bubbles, and the colors of the bubbles, the type of energy. Angry person, let's put with another angry person, so they learn. Whereas previously it was a higher chance of learning because it was all like lower intensity and well, actually no, let me paraphrase it. What made it difficult to learn is because something you've done, let's say 10 years ago, it took so long to build the event. By the time event happens to you, you cannot create correlation. So now uh, it will be easier to learn, but it might be harder to survive the learning because of the intensity. And that's where it's like, but the whole time Matrix was playing this game, let's put the matching energies together because like the guy is walking. Another way the story could play out, Johnny is angry and decided to go for a walk with a knife. And there's another angry guy, but he happens to be a vet and he knows how to break Johnny's arm. And both get learning. So it's all about this learning. And by the way, I want to make a side note about also US because the financial slash wealth values are so deeply ingrained in that culture. And we've touched on this previously. We're heading into a major global crisis, financial crisis. As the markets like collapse, that's also what's going to raise those people. They don't even need to go to war. The level of depression will go to such insane levels that it just activates self-destruction through health problems. And look what's happening right now. Oil is going through the roof. Market's very unstable. And like everything is so nimble right now. Another whatever tiny event, the market can easily crush 50+%. And people who've been working their whole lives to accumulate zeros on a digital screen have those zeros disappear. What do you think happens to their mental health and then physical health as a result?
So if we're looking at almost like a hierarchy of states for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Because you mentioned and I don't disagree with you. I mean, I lived in the States for 17 years, and I will say at least of all the countries I've lived in or visited, it was the country where wealth accumulation always seemed to be the highest greatest good.
Yes.
If I was to just say one thing about the States, people work hard and money is number one,
That's why
right?
the saying is you go to the US to make money. Like, well, both you lived in Canada as well. I lived in Canada. I moved to States to make money. If
Yeah.
you want to succeed in making money, that's the best environment to make money. And if you do it very consciously and thoughtfully, that's a great instrument. There's nothing bad about it. The core is not the key insight here is not to allow that to define who you are and to drive your life completely. And that's where most people fail. They lose the boundary. They lose that nuance.
So what would be the top low density sort of energies, right? If
Yeah.
we say wealth accumulation would be one of them, or maybe it's not even wealth accumulation, but would it be just wealth accumulation as the god or something, or how would you paraphrase that?
Yeah, I would paraphrase it differently or structure differently.
Yeah.
The easiest way to define energies, low to high vibration, is emotional states. And we bring up Hawkins with his scale where he like attached the vibrational levels to different emotions. And
Hmm.
by the way, I should include here a link to the diagram we've made as well. And I think somebody else made similar diagram because we were inspired by somebody else. The only thing we've adjusted, I believe, is actually redone the vibrational scale. So every energy has vibration. There's and the lowest vibration you can experience, one of the lowest vibrational energies are described as shame and guilt. And guess what? I lost all the money. What's the feeling you're experiencing?
Oh
Shame
my
and
god, yeah,
guilt.
shame and guilt.
Exactly. Or I thought I was of a status because I had a big house and now I have to move into smaller house. Shame and guilt. So it's really not about the theatricals. It's what about what human experiences as a state, and that's what this whole lower vibrational civilization values are built on. They make people not be themselves to avoid low vibrational feelings versus helping them understand how to address them fundamentally. Because to address shame and guilt fundamentally, you remove constructs that, let's say, my social status slash my financial status, that my whatever the list goes on is attached to my state. I choose to feel great even if I live in a tent in a forest. Or I live under a fucking bridge or whatever fuck it is. You just remove that programming, and then you at any point in time or any second of the day or any minute of the day you can choose to be happy. And then you're like, huh. And by the way, there are many people like that, like who live with nothing, and they're some of the happiest people ever because they've never had those programs installed. And by the way, another reason why what you've described, like you had a great description of America where the prioritization is wealth accumulation,
Mm.
because that's how all the egregors, so all the systems that run America, that's the core value that is ingrained there. So by just being there, it's unless you're very conscious and self-aware, it's almost impossible to avoid that programming. And let's come back to the beginning of our conversation. First, energy gets programmed, and then based on the programming, the events unfold because people get programmed. So America was programmed with that as being one of the core values, and that's the way the software is written. So if you put so let's say America is an operating system, and if you put an electron in a human, it has to go through a specific path because that's how the routing is done there. So that's why a lot of people, when they, and by the way, that even though I'm like, we broadly speak about America, but you can choose and go and live in nature and like stunning national parks everywhere, choose to live in nature. And that programming is barely applicable when you're just further away from social constructs in a nature. It's because nature is pure. And of course, there is like let's call it. They call it Israel has Iron Dome. America is
Oh,
building Golden Dome.
yeah,
That
yeah.
Golden Dome is still over that nature, so you will still pick up the wind of that energy, but it will be like a very like subtle whisper where you can be like, nah, fuck off, I'm not interested in that. But if you're in any of the major cities or even mid-sized cities, you're getting programmed with that because that's the program that's flying energetically everywhere. So it's shaping you. Every tiny thing is shaping you, like the ad you see on a bus stop, the conversation you overhear in a cafe, and the list goes on. So, yeah.
So another question I wanted to go into, because I think this really, well, I'm fascinated by it, and I think it ties into everything that we're seeing happening in the Middle East right now. But you do see that everybody, and I mean everybody, every player in the conflict or players that are unannounced that are in the conflict. Everybody's always looking for the quote unquote moral high ground, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for the moral high ground. Um, whether it's, you know, the USA is the next coming of Satan to we are the chosen people, so this is our land,
Yeah. Yeah.
to they're chopping off babies' heads and we need to go spread democracy. I mean, everybody's looking for the moral high ground, right?
Mhm.
Or the perceived moral high ground. Now, from a matrix perspective, is morality just a human construct? Or is there a level of morality that is actually a soul level construct?
Yeah, deep question. Well, first of all, I think morality is such a messy word nowadays because it has been defined in so many funny ways. So that's why the easiest way to describe this, there are universal laws, and that's where we started conversation. Protect life and life's evolution. That's it. That's the moral code that is aligned with the whole fucking universe, not just this this sector of universe. And when you put everything through that lens, but then people start playing funny tricks. Oh, I'm protecting life of Iranians, you know. And yes, there are moments where things need to be destroyed because they are threatening death of life, meaning destruction of life. And this is where you can actually destroy another life. If you're like, so let's say if a robber comes into your house and you have a gun, you're protecting your own life and then the life of your family. It's not breaking universal law. And that's where things gets funny. And that's the basically, let's call them the nuanced part of universal law / moral code that they use. But of course, let's be honest. It's like they're they got so lazy that they're not even properly creating the stories. And that's why we can now see that what is communicated and the actual reasons why things being done, they don't match. If there was a real scenario where there was a dictator of a 90 million person country or whatever population of Iran is, and like daily executing, I don't know, 100,000 people for shits and giggles, somebody interfering, there's a higher chance of aligning with the first universal law, right? But it's like, uh, hey, they've executed some people who were against regime. Now you're getting into a very nuanced thing. And by the way, and that's why the reason, like, for Iran to experience this and for America to experience it from their end, there are reasons. Like, Iran would not experience this as a nation if there was not a reason for them to experience. And I'll give a simple explanation, but of course, it's so much more complex and nuanced because so much more history. Persian Empire for hundreds of years was one of the biggest aggressors on this fucking planet. So guess what? There's a delayed time to receive karma. There's a shipment by FedEx of karma to that sector. But at the same time, we can look at it from a different angle. America now has been aggressor for the last 200 years, and they found an enemy who was preparing for a very long time to prove a point. So, two countries with history of being aggressors and breaking universal laws left and right met. And that's like two angry guys meeting in the street. One with a knife, another one with a hammer. So Israel was bombing, I don't know, Gaza, whatever fuck is going on there. And once again, that's a nuanced story. Now they're experiencing Gaza firsthand in their major cities. So once again, it comes back to the Matrix. Let's bring all the guys together who have similar energy and let them experience it. And that's what we're just observing playing out. And as part of that, either they learn to value life, align with universal laws, shift themselves from anger, I don't know, whatever state they're in, into higher vibrational state, learn the lesson, and stay on this planet, or they just kill each other, which also helps the planet. They either evolve and help the planet, or they self exit and help the planet. So it's a win-win in both situations.
So I know you've touched on, I believe, the 5 or 6. Can you tell me, by your estimation or what you've sort of unpacked, how many universal laws are there that you've discovered so far?
Well, you can make hundreds because
Mm,
you get into nuances, right?
yeah.
And that's where I think religion fails, or many religious teachings fail, because they're not teaching person to connect with the source, which is basically the original broadcaster of the universal laws.
Mhm.
And when we talk about universal laws, we now described energy with words. We call them universal laws, and we started breaking down how we experience that energy. So even in description, using the constructs to describe it, what happens? We miss the nuance. Whereas the job of any kind of a spiritual worker, practitioner, whatever, what they call light warrior, so many terminologies now floating around, is to connect the person back to that source so that person can interpret the original energy versus me explaining it. So when I feel the energy of absolute or God or the creator, I know what to do in a moment, and I know what the universal law is and what it's not. But if I had a book that is a Bible or Torah or Quran that is whatever, few thousand pages, I think it's page 2323. That's the scenario, you know? So they created this fucking middleman, and nobody understood the point. And then they also didn't want to connect them directly. It only they want to connect you to through all the churches, synagogues, and mosques to a middleman, which is basically dispersing very nuanced information in constructs that are already constructs and have been further interpreted and distorted by a person interpreting who was not always properly connected to the source. It creates mess. So the answer to that is the job of people who want to stick around here is connect to the source and do your own interpretation, and you will not be mistaken in the moment because it's a feeling. You're like, and you will be presented with a new situation in life, and you will have a feeling that is the right thing to do here. Like, because we can start bringing up a situation like you're walking in the street and some kid is getting beat up by someone, by an adult, right? Okay, in most scenarios you should protect that kid, but you haven't connected to the energy of that situation and you don't know what's actually unfolding. That kid could have stabbed another person just around the corner. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why when you're connected to the source, you as a result connected to everything energetically. So when you see the situations like that, then you can actually scan the real energetic content, and what you'll read, the adult that's beating up the kid, you'll feel the righteous harmonious energy of right Taurus, or destruction or transformation. It's the energy of Shiva. Somebody broke universal law. That kid stabbed somebody, another kid, and that adult is smacking the crap out of them as part of disciplining. So, and that's where that nuance is. So that's why the only way to stick around on this planet is to establish that connection, because then moral stops being a question. It's automatic. It's a feeling. Like, you don't need rules, you don't need discussions, you don't need committees to discuss was it right or wrong. Everybody starts having a knowing what is aligned with the creator, and as a result with the whole universe.
Mm. Yeah, so from that perspective then, yeah, we can definitely say that there are specific, or there's a soul level, would we say code of conduct then?
I
Like
would
in
say
terms of
spirit.
spirit? Okay.
Because okay, so mind and the body, this is representation of us, and us, it's we're multi-dimensional structure or being.
Mhm.
It's this the representation in this dimension. Then the soul is like a adapter between the energy of a spirit and this dimension. And the spirit energy of the spirit is the energy closest to the central sun or the creator or Big Bang or an etc. So what I'm describing is the energy of the spirit holds that knowing. And by the way, that's why, but the spirit is still few degrees removed from the creator. And for example, the ego of the spirit is when everybody, without understanding the situation deeply, starts trying to align everything to universal laws. That's how we had crusades, jihad, and the list goes on. That's the ego of the spirit. That's a person did not connect to the source or to their spirit properly and still has a bunch of distortions and personality and starts interpreting the universal laws or things written in a Bible, Torah, the list goes on, right? Starts interpreting through a distorted, through a lens of distorted personality, and that's how you end up with crusades, jihad, and etc. So that's why the connection is so critical, and always the whole life unfolds from a place of here and now. Like, and that was a difficult because we grow up in a society where we were given um, kind of shortcuts, life hacks, golden rules, and the list goes on. Laws, rather than interpreting in the moment, we were taught for the longest period of time is to make it easy for us follow some kind of rules. And that's where all the nuance breaks, right? Because then you face some situation, well, this rule seems to be applicable, and you're still making your own interpretation in the moment, and many people screw up how they interpret it. So whereas when you focus on establishing the direct connection, then there is a state of knowing. And as I was transitioning from living by the rules to living from a place of here and now being aligned, it was very difficult because I kept like, oh, what's the rule I can use? What's the rule I can use? And then I had to pause myself every time and learn. I was like, oh, I'm shifting from this state to this. And what you got to do in that is in every situation that is especially has some weight to it, your decision in that situation has some weight in it, how things will unfold in your life of others, I would pause and really sit with that situation until I would feel that connection and what is the unique way of approaching it. But because everybody wants to do things faster and impatient, there's not enough patience in people to pause and not make decision until they gain the clarity. And if a person wants to truly get aligned, that's the method. You just pause until you gain clarity. If you cannot get clarity for a day, a week, a month, a year, that means you don't act. You figure out, and if it's a pressing situation, then you find help for you to get you to the state where you can gain clarity.
Interesting.
Like you found a lot of tools, right? Like in your business, in your personal life, like, well, I need to make decisions about business strategy. I was like, okay, the constellations work for you really well, right?
Yeah.
You do it and you're like, boom, that's how I stay honest to myself. I stay honest to universe and I move forward.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I finished up my second go around through all my NLP training. We wrapped that up last weekend, where we were looking at uh, virtual filters, which is a kind of a fascinating concept where you end up sourcing what is this filter actually that covers your entire life, and it takes pretty much days and hours upon end to actually get to the meat of it. But then you'll find that there's a specific filter that only allows certain experiences to come through. Almost like if we were to look
Yep.
at the atmosphere, right?
Yep.
Where it's like we have everything under, and there could be these, wonderful ideas or states or, different things that you would want in your life, but they can't penetrate the atmosphere because of the way you have this filter set up. So then, of course, what you experience is just the city that's under that big dome, under that filter. And to start to dissolve it, because it's virtual, you don't actually know what it is. This is why it takes days and a whole group of people to unpack what it is, because once you see it and now you experience it, the shining, it's like what you talk about, right? Shining the light on it, making
Yeah.
it conscious,
Discover the so-called enemy.
yeah, starts to change it. And then, of course,
Yeah.
there's the act of creation where you need to, in order to dissolve it, you need to create a new filter that doesn't disturb the old filter.
Well, and here's if we can bring this all back to Iran, right?
Yeah.
A huge subset of a government has U.S. government probably is tied into somehow this Epstein whatever, and whatever the story is, and the story doesn't matter. Mossad is holding the evidence against these guys, trying to arm them to bomb Iran. They have the filters that if something happens, they lose all of their status, they lose their positions and whatever, and that's going to be end of their life. But that is not true. It's just a filter.
Yeah.
And as a
Yes.
result, they do the activities. And on the other end, there is a belief if we get attacked, we'll wipe you out because you've been like, trying to attack us and undermine us for so long. We've accumulated a lot of whatever and accumulated a lot of karma attacking others, being an aggressor on this planet for whatever, hundreds of years in the past when Persian Empire was one of the largest ones. So there's specific filters installed and the filter's kind of matching, so you gotta interact for them to start seeing the filters.
So lastly, something I wanted to talk about then. How do, on a big picture, how do world politics and the matrix relate to each other? And here's why I'm curious, right? Like,
Yeah.
if the matrix is shaping and controlling life and consciousness, then isn't the matrix also controlling politics? Or who is actually in control? Like, what is, because obviously as humans we have this idea, whether it's actually true or not, that's for debate. I'd be curious on your thoughts, but this idea that we have free will, right?
Yep.
And so then, if I'm a human, I'm Mitch here, and I have free will. Well, then, I'm creating the politics, but am I really?
Yep.
Or is someone else actually in control and I'm just living the politics that are being laid out in front of me? Actually, there was a good cartoon that my NLP mentor Carl showed us, and it's this Wallace and Gromit cartoon. Anyways, long story short, I think it's Gromit or whatever the dog is on this train, and as this little toy train is moving forward that he's on, he's constantly laying down a track in front of the train, like just in time track, right? So he's like, this train is speeding along and he's like just laying down tracks because otherwise this train will crash. And is that maybe what's going on, where it's like we think we're in charge, but actually Matrix is just laying down a track at a time, and we think we're doing things, but we're really just along for the ride?
I feel like there are 4 or 5 good questions here, and let me
Take your
unpack
pick
from the start. First of all, let's deeper understanding how the matrix works. Matrix is just a software. Then there is a destination, or what do you want to produce? That's a vector. So the software, the V5 version of Matrix software here is to accelerate evolution of humans, basically go from low vibration to high vibration. And the way it works in this situation here on this planet, if you can't figure something out, we're going to put you with another person who has the same energy. So it does that onto you, so that sooner or later you start realizing, well, if like like, let's say a person is angry and constantly keeps running into angry people, and they keep beating the shit out of him, and then sometimes he wins, sometimes the other wins. Sooner or later, I was like, why do I keep getting beat up? I'm like kind of fed up with this experience. Then my bulb goes off. I was like, oh, maybe because I'm angry, so I got to deal with that. Oh, I dealt with that. No more angry people in my field. I stopped getting beat up. That's the vessel or the vehicle or the algorithm of how it works. But then we have a vector. So the vectors get get set by advanced consciousness, which are those souls of architects or like that. Like basically, the higher, the more advanced the consciousness is, the closer you're to absolute. So basically, what architect is a whirlpool of consciousness that is somewhere right by the center of the central sun of the universe, or what we call where the Big Bang happened, or what we call creator. So it's a basically representation of consciousness of creator that comes here and was like, okay, that's what's going on here. That's the vector for this planet, for this sector. And now basically you have a vector and you have the mechanics, which is how the matrix wired. How do we get using this mechanics to this higher vibrational state? Coming back to free will now, there are layers of free will. If a human is low vibration, that is an indication that is that human is closer to the animal state rather than to the creator or the absolute. Hence, the amount of free will be very, very condensed. They can choose to either have an apple or pear or fry some eggs. That's the free will. And the rest of the life kind of happens to them. They either get hired or not hired for a job, and they can't really control, and they go to 100 interviews and etc. So the closer you get with your consciousness, with your soul, with your state of development to the level of absolute, the more free will you have, then you start being involved as consciousness in the process of setting vectors for whole star systems, sectors of universe, galaxies, and the list goes on. And that's where, because then that is an indication you've had so much experience in every possible situation, and you've represented universal laws with all its nuance really well. We upgrade you to higher vibration. So the more you represent the original code of the absolute, which is basically universal laws, the higher status you get, the more free will you get, because now you're trusted that you're not going to fucking break the whole universe, right? Like, if you're like right now, you take an average person and like you give them a house and a backyard to organize. Many of them can't even fucking do that. It's a fucking shit show, a mess. Half of the things are broken, they're fighting with their partner, grass is overgrown. Like, so if you cannot structure that tiny piece of fucking land that was given to you according to universal laws, which is according to harmony and order, like your free will is a perception. Yeah, you have free will if you're gonna have KFC or McDonald's. That's where your free will ends. The rest is you're managed by egregors of religion, government, whoever is imposing the rest of rules. And that's why we cannot shit on the government or religion or anything that exists on this planet, because there were many young souls, and if you give them a fucking free reign here, that planet would have not existed anymore. So that's why through those structures, a lot of that free will was limited. But where the planet and the whole solar system is moving, that is not interesting, because there are a bunch of very advanced souls that came into these bodies and said, we already did 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million years of incarnations, and we had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of incarnations. We figured out how not to kill each other and how to be creative and etc. We don't need any of these low vibrational structures for animalistic beings who are learning to be representative of absolute or consciousness. So hence, we're going through transformation. America is bombing Iran. Iran is bombing everyone else. And that's part of the transformation. We're removing these old systems that are not necessary for a soul that is at such advanced levels where they don't even have a thought to go like, I don't know, beat up the neighbor. They just want to like set up their, like, I don't know, the house, the farm, and depending on their predisposition, create something for people rather than go take something from people.
And lastly, for clarification, just because it was interesting to hear the way that you said it. So, would you say then, like, Matrix and God are two different things?
I wouldn't, and the reason is nothing is
Okay.
different here because everything is like a Russian stacking doll. So absolute is the biggest stacking doll,
Okay.
Russian stacking doll. Then the next within it, there are a bunch of galaxies, right? That's the next, and a bunch of them, and each of them is a stacking doll of itself. And the further we go, so Matrix is just one of the stacking dolls. And by the way, Matrix is everything. The whole universe is Matrix. There is universal Matrix. Here in this podcast, we specifically talk about Matrix of a planet Earth and partially of Matrix of solar system. But Matrix is everything. It's just algorithms of how things work. So when we talk about universal laws, that is actually a descriptor of a universal matrix. But this sector has specific add-ons on top of the main matrix or within the main matrix, which is we put young souls who are more like closer to animals than carriers of consciousness into this matrix, and this matrix has been developed to produce godlike consciousness in a shorter span of time. So, and this is the matrix v5 versus matrix v6, which is shifting to godlike souls have incarnated on this planet to clean it up because there is value to this planet. It has a lot of history, and from this planet we will be creating new type of matter, new type of life, new type of everything as architects to distribute across the universe. Very different ones. It was previously for young souls. Now this planet is shifting to be for very advanced souls. So that's why this shift is very interesting as well. And there is a potentiality for souls that are not architect souls is to become very rapidly to get qualification of architect souls if they survive this shit show of a transition. And by shit show of a transition, I don't mean in a bad way. If a soul can demonstrate that it can find light or connection to the absolute and bring harmony and order of absolute here into this environment while all this mess is unfolding, clearly that soul has a very deep understanding of universal or very good connection and interpretation of universal laws thanks to connection or thanks to the way it's wired or etc. So that's why it's such a unique opportunity for many souls. That's why so many advanced souls loaded here, because you can literally go from grade 3 to grade, like, no, maybe not from grade 3, from grade 5 or 6 you can skip to grade 8 or 9.
Got it. Well said. And I just had another question came on board.
Let's do
This
it.
is the last one, I swear. If we're looking at world events as they are and all the
Yeah,
conflict, where does this, I guess, well, where does the soul of the planet itself, if it has one,
it does.
play into this? Because you would think, well, we like to think of ourselves as on a rock and we just do as we please, but it does seem possibly in a hierarchical structure that the planet is bigger or has a bigger soul than the individuals of us. I don't know. I'm just assuming. So at what point does the planet, or can the planet even prevent certain apocalypse type events from happening just because it is going to save its own skin?
Oh, 100%. So, hierarchy. Star, which is in our scenario sun, highest
Uh-huh.
vibration in the star system. Planets, so it's a consciousness. It has a soul. And
Yeah.
by the way, the way other souls form, they're all powered by some kind of star. So when we say your soul is from Vega, your soul, the consciousness, basically, it didn't split off, but it formed from the energy of the star Vega. It's this advanced consciousness, and you become individualized. So sometime down the road, you can become star or the whole universe itself once you got advanced enough. Right? The planet is the next level of consciousness, but here where things get a little bit funky. So, like the planet consciousness is, of course, wants to survive and evolve, and the tools that it has is all kind of climatic natural cataclysmic events to course correct the civilization that inhibits it. And yes, there are protective function. If this civilization is on a timeline of nuclear fallout, it'll just launch a bunch of natural cataclysm, and that's a natural way to preserve a bunch of things on the planet while wiping some people off. And by the way, that instrument, as part of this transformation and transition, will be used as well. Like the poles are shifting. As part of the poles shifting, part of the land will go underwater, part of the land will get exposed. So those are the planet consciousness instruments. Where it gets also a little bit trickier, some souls that loaded into these bodies have consciousness that is more advanced than the planet or even the sun's consciousness. Because they're the souls, the so-called architect souls that came from from consciousness that is closest to the central universal sun, which is more advanced than our sun. So that's how the system is so interestingly intertwined, and that the deeper you go into metaphysics of how things work, the more interesting it gets. So, and that's why the key word here is like everything is very nuanced. And that's why every situation should be looked specifically for as that situation. And one thing, there's some people that like asking hypothetical questions. And when they ask, well, imagine I have a friend who did this to their husband, and what does that mean in that scenario? And I was like, my first question, was that a real situation? Or you're just inventing a situation that you're then trying to apply onto your situation, and you're like muddying the actual event somehow. Because hypothetical situation, the reason I don't answer to those questions, because it has not happened in energy, or it doesn't exist in the energy, and because everything is so nuanced, there could be 700 answers to that situation. Versus when it's a specific, I was like, okay, let's get to a specific situation. Who's your friend? Is it you, or is it actually your friend? And what is actually happening? And then you can actually give a nuanced answer specifically to that situation. And that's thanks to that connection to the creator, to all the energy and etc. Because you, with your point of consciousness, you go specifically into, in that situations, what were the energies playing out? And they're very specific. They're not hypothetical.
All right. Well, people are dropping bombs, but we are dropping wisdom. That's it for this week.
Quite
I
a
feel
mic drop.
Yes, that is our mic drop moment for
If we
today.
continue on the dropping thing here, dropping train.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Till next time, my good friend.
Yeah. Thank you. Until next time.